Hi all, good evening. This is my Malcolm the Eyes standard Brawl deck. This is the first standard Brawl deck that I built, and I chose to build around Malcolm the Eyes um, just because I was looking for something um, kind of fun, not overtly powerful, but gave some, deck building hooks, something you could be a little creative with. A couple of those hooks was number one, just multi-spelling, which is probably the most obvious thing. So we have the ops and the sleight of hands and the crash throughs, the cheap low opportunity cost cards that we can run out to try to hit that number two cast um, um, threshold. The second one is, since we'll be producing clues and hopefully in good volume, we should have extra artifacts around. So looking for any ways that we can use those as fodder besides just cashing in on the actual clues themselves in the kind of the as written way. Um, Unfortunately, in this avenue, there wasn't or I was hoping to find some like goblin hand grenades, but those just kind of don't exist. The kind of the best mechanic I came around for that is bargain, and only a couple of the cards made the cut. So we have Torch Tower, which is admittedly a pretty good card by itself. Johan's Stopgap, and then Breaches, and then I guess to a lesser extent Demand Answers as well. But I just did not find a lot of good options for this. Um, and then the last one, just look at Malcolm's Body as a 2 mana 2/2 flying haste. To me, that kind of just screamed Voltron. Um, so I made sure to include, you'll probably notice, plenty of equipments to power them up, some cheap auras that can give us extra um, additional card advantage or material to work with, or flails or whatever, monstrous rages, those sort of things. So those are the ideas that I had in mind when I started out the build on this. So this is the second iteration of the deck. I played probably about a dozen games or so on my initial build, retuned it, and played maybe about another 8 or so to get me to this point. Um, and have a handful of findings along the way. The first one being just 3 CMC cards in general. My curve was a little bit higher before. Still, I'd say relatively low, but a bit higher. Had some more 3 drops. A couple examples here, like Acklepackle, um, Frolicking Familiar, and Tenacious Tome Seeker. All these cards seem like plenty good value, or it offered some sort of advantage, or synergize with one of the deck building hooks that I talked about earlier in some way. And seemed totally appropriate at the time. Obviously, the deck wants to stay a little bit low to the ground to enable the double spelling and everything, but the extent at which we wanted it to stay down to the ground and keep that curve low I just underestimated initially. So I kind of cut everything, rejiggered it to get much lower. Like even my 4 drops, Johann Stopgap is really more of a 2 drop, or it's at least that's the idea. Leyline Axe, we're hoping to be able to put this card in for free, and then everything else is 1 and 2 mana. So a lot of 3 drops came out to try to um, make room for cheaper cards. Um, the second thing is Omen Hawker and Enigma Jewel. Both of these were inclusions from the beginning and have not lost their spot. They just kind of screamed Soul Ring to me, and that's pretty much how they've played out. They have every time I've have been able to play them, they've really pulled their weight. Um, I don't know if maybe this is an obvious inclusion to everyone else or anyone else who's built a Malcolm the Eyes deck before, but both of these have been fantastic. Enigma Jewel, I don't even care to flip it over. Never tried to. Probably there's no way this deck will ever even get to 9 mana. That's totally fine. Just being able to have something to um, consistently sack our free clues to keep an extra card coming every turn is fantastic. And there's a couple other things like our equipments that we can sink that mana into also if we have to or we want to. So both these have really impressed. Third finding is the lack of instant speed removal does kind of suck sometimes. Um, since the you know in the since our total card pool is just standard, and it is a singleton format, it definitely feels sometimes like we are reaching a little bit for different options to play. Um, um, so burn spells like our burst lightning and torch the tower and lightning strike. All those are great. They're going to be included anyway. But then once we get much past that, we have to start looking at some sorcery speed things like chainsaw, which is also good. Don't get me wrong, but then you add that on top of obliteration bolt, and we have legion extruder, and it just makes it so that sometimes while we normally when we want to play proactive, um, and it just be casting stuff on our main phase on our turn so that we're turning on Malcolm and getting those clues. Sometimes, it's nice to be able to play reactively, and the card pool just doesn't really lend itself to that if we're trying to stay this low to the ground. Um, so it gets awkward sometimes for that reason. Um, Fourth finding or observation with the deck is I think in this current iteration there's probably too many equipments. There's plenty of times where the if like a Malcolm doesn't get removed, they don't have an answer soon enough, and we start we jam a sword on it, and then pump it up with a monstrous rage or what have you, or combat research, and we're just going to town on it. Then and we just run away with the game. Um, but there's other times where there's definitely a handful of equipments, and yeah, that with the auras and this and that, and sometimes you just kind of end up having a pile of cardboard, like rectangles on the bottom right side of the screen, and there's just you can't get back up off the ground. So there might be a little bit too many Voltron things here. Fifth item is the mana base. We're only running 22 lands, and I think that feels about right. Um, Obviously, the curve is pretty low, and we have some alternative methods of generating mana with like sword, our pickaxe, and the soul rings in the deck. And we also have a couple methods of helping to dig through the deck in an affordable method, like if we get a clue engine going, or just with a demand answer or something like that. Oftentimes we're stuck on we get up to 4 lands, and that's kind of at the end of the game, and usually that's fine. Um, the colors aren't perfect, but I think I'm running about as many mana fixing lands as I can get away with. Um, I mean, we could maybe make the argument to cut a demolition field. I don't think we want to cut the fountain port, but maybe we cut a demolition field for a little bit more color. But sometimes you just get stuck on it. I think I'm only missing a couple color fixing lands in the format, and of those that we're missing, they're like the common tap lands, and I think we want to limit how many tap lands we have since everything is affordable. We're trying to be as proactive as possible on turns 1, 2, 3, 4. And final item is Sword of Wealth and Power. Um, I don't know if this is the best one to include. This one has been really powerful and has performed really well for me. But giving protection from instant sorceries has been awkward sometimes when I'm trying to play a combat trick or buff up Malcolm in some way. That said, the two other swords in the format also each give protection from one of the colors in the deck. So if I had that, then it would probably kick off an equipment or kick off an aura or something like that along the way. So none of them they're all going to be non-bows at some point. I think Sword of Once in Future is probably has the effects that are probably the most synergistic with the deck. It allows us to cast another spell for free out of our graveyard. Um, but that's it. The Wealth and Power is the one I have in my collection, so that's what I'm running, and it's still been good. The Treasure's pretty powerful. Now, okay, so some holistic takeaways. Um, I think the deck is pretty darn fun to play. When it works, when it runs well, we can kind of run away with the game pretty quick. Just powering up Malcolm and shooting out clues and scrapping them off, and it just feels like you're doing a lot with not a lot of resources, and everything's kind of like like gears are turning and everything is like helping each other kind of. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just like you get a Malcolm that's swinging with a pickaxe and it's creating tokens, and then you double spelling and breaches sack something off, and then you shoot something else of theirs and it dies, and it just feels like you're really punching above your weight class, I guess, when the deck works. The deck can be frail at times, though. I can usually recover if Malcolm gets removed once, but if it starts to get much more than that, or they have too much interaction, something like that, you can get bogged down in a hurry with, all those equipments, all the rectangles that are in the bottom right corner of the screen, kind of just stuck there, and you can't do much else. So, it can go either way. So my next main takeaway is there's plenty to build around. I listed a couple things that jumped out to me at the beginning of the video for double spelling, artifact fodder, and Voltroning, but um, I could see you could drop the Voltron thing and play it kind of mid-rangey, or I feel like if you're creative, you could probably take it in a couple different ways, and um, just because of the way Malcolm works, and I think you could be very creative with the deck. Last main takeaway from the deck is that standard Brawl in general just feels kind of casual. I feel like it's not uncommon to run into an opponent who's keeping a shaky hand that they shouldn't, and you just get a free win out of it, or people are playing like a bad common that looks like it doesn't belong there. And for that reason, I feel like sometimes it feels like we're performing better than maybe we deserve to. Um, I feel like the deck needs a little bit more tuning for sure. I think maybe cutting an equipment, and maybe adding in a dive down to complement the shore up, because we don't have a tremendous amount of protection for Malcolm. Of course, when you don't need it, you draw them both. When you do need it, you can't find any of them. Um, but I think that'd be a good place to improve at. A diamond pickaxe has actually been a major overachiever. It's probably impressed me more than any of the other equipments, really. Um, if I may be missing something here, I think if we could find like another 1 mana card advantage, or not like another 1 mana cantrip, that would be excellent. I kind of feel like the deck can't get enough of those, or maybe even a 2 mana cantrip would be fine. But you'll notice I actually don't include any 2 CMC cantrips at all. Originally, I thought that there would be room for those sort of thing, but turns out the 2 mana do kind of nothing, draw a card is just way too expensive. So most our two drops are trying to do something. Um, I think that's about it. Let me know what you guys think about the deck, or if this is helpful, if there's anything obvious that I missed in the build, or maybe you took it a totally different way. Runs a lot better, or yeah. I think it's been a lot of fun. It's been cool to play. I like it. Thanks.